Good evening to everyone who may be joining us live. We welcome you to our Royal Missionary Baptist Church and Royal Foundation Wellness on Wednesday. We are excited to have you with us this evening, and we're excited to have our panelists. We are having a discussion about how to fuel our bodies correctly. Certainly, we are thoughtful about fueling our spirit, fueling our minds, but all of that occupies the same space, mind, body, and spirit. And it was the vision, of course, of our senior pastor, Reverend Dr. Isaac J. Holt Jr., to think about practical ways that we can connect mind, body, and spirit, and that we can experience life in fullness. And so we're grateful for this discussion and grateful to have these experts on the line with us this evening. I remind our community that once we get started, you will be able to submit your questions in the chat function, and those will be submitted anonymously. And so feel free to ask our experts on tonight any question you may have related to the topic for discussion. We also want to remind us that this webinar will be on the Royal Foundation website, where you'll be able to view it later on, because I'm sure there's much information that we will want to capture and hold on to in days to come, because we want to hold on to these bodies as long as we can and treat them right so they'll treat us right. And so we're grateful this evening. And so with all that said, on behalf again of our senior pastor, Reverend Dr. Isaac J. Holt Jr., our Wellness on Wednesday chairperson, Ms. Cleo Brown, and on behalf of our other Wellness on Wednesday committee members, we welcome you tonight. I'm Reverend Frank Harris, a member of Royal Missionary Baptist Church, and delighted to have you with us. So in that light, we ask you and invite you to join us in prayer. Let us pray. Eternal God, again, we're grateful for this opportunity. Thank you again for surrounding us with wise counselors and those who have studied and put into practice what they will share with us on tonight. Thank you for these bodies, and thank you for provision in the earth, that you have given us all that we need to be sustained and to live life, to have life, and to have it more abundantly, as you promise in your word. So help us to be attentive, help us to be ready to receive what you would have us to gain and understand in this day and on this night and for days to come. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, it's my delight to introduce our panelists for this evening, and we begin with Ms. Waukesha Evans. Waukesha Evans is a licensed physician assistant who has a passion for physical health and emotional wellness and loves educating her patients. She has worked in internal medicine for the past 16 years. She is the Low Country area representative to the State Board and the South Carolina Academy of Physician Assistants. She is also a preceptor for students at the Medical University of South Carolina and also at Charleston Southern University, as well as Walden University. She is an active member of the National Council of Negro Women and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, where she serves in health-related positions. She is also a run group leader for Charleston Black Girls Run. Ms. Evans and her husband, Principal Timothy Evans, are active members of Royal, where she teaches weekly Zumba classes for the Royal Foundation, and they have 4 children. So Ms. Evans, we are delighted to see you and have you with us on tonight, helping to lead this discussion. We also have Ms. Jermaine Jenkins. Jermaine Jenkins is the co-founder of Fresh Future Farm Incorporated, which operates a nonprofit farm and grocery store in North Charleston that grows the quality of life their neighbors deserve. Ms. Jenkins is a nationally recognized visionary leader in urban agriculture and is a passionate advocate for food justice. Ms. Jenkins and the Fresh Future Farm team have collaborated with Seedlight Pictures on a 1,000 plus hour oral history archive for the upcoming website Rooted Stories, and a 90-minute documentary Rooted Film, where she serves as a principal participant and co-producer. As Community Network Manager for Equitable Food-Oriented Development, they are excited about curating in-person and virtual content nationally aligned with community-led food system principles. So, Ms. Jenkins, welcome. We are delighted again to have you with us tonight. And we also have Mr. Lamar H. Hodges. He is the Cooking Matters Coordinator with the Department of Health and Environmental Control, who loves providing nutrition education to community organizations. He is also a South Carolina Endeavor Certified Content Specialist Trainer. And in past years, Mr. Hodges has served as a nutritionist too and trainer in the WIC program and a program coordinator with the Child and Adult Care Food Program in Columbia. He was the first African-American male nutritionist in the WIC program. Mr. Hodges is a very active member of Lovely Hill Baptist Church in Smoke, South Carolina, and a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. He serves on the board of the Gregory Kinsey Memorial Scholarship Fund, which provides scholarships to the Colleton County High School seniors. So, Mr. Hodges, we welcome you as well. And we'll be led in the conversation this evening by our moderator, Mr. Cinti Wingo, who is the Community Systems Director for South Carolina DHEC Low Country Region. So, Mr. Wingo, we turn it over to you. I'm going to sit back and take great notes and listen to this wonderful discussion tonight.
Thank you so much, Reverend Frankie Harris, for the warm welcoming this evening. And thank you, the panelists and everybody who is turning in to listen to this conversation today. I appreciate the conversation is very needed, in our community, in order to understand how to stay healthy as community, as member of the church, as brothers or sisters. So from my opening, first of all, this is pretty much to the panelists. Could each one of you briefly explain, to introduce yourself and explain to the audience what is your expertise when it comes to healthy eating? So I will start with Dr. Waukesha Evans.
Good evening. So I'm Waukesha Evans. I'm a licensed clinical physician assistant. I've worked in the area of internal medicine for 14 years and now family medicine for the past 2 years. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the title physician assistant, it means that I'm a master's trained clinician. I have a master's in biomedical sciences and with a concentration in pathology and laboratory medicine, and a second master's in physician assistant. I have some education experience and I've been in direct patient care for the last 16 years. So that taken together, I am an advocate for patient education. And so I actively see patients on a daily basis. I perform exams, order diagnostics, interpret those diagnostics, explain results, write prescriptions, and come up with a holistic plan for our patients to develop healthy lifestyles.
Thank you so much, Dr. Waukesha. And the next on my screen here is Lamont. So just explain the same way, just briefly your introduction and explain to us your expertise when it related to healthy eating.
Okay. Again, my name is Lamar Hodges. Serve as a nutritionist with the DHEC SNAP education program. On a daily basis, what my role is as a Cooking Matters coordinator. I go out in the communities and designated counties, normally in our rural areas. We are normally focused on providing that community nutrition in ways of one of the great programs that we have, which is Cooking Matters. And we provide the nutrition education, but we also provide where we are helping those participants who participate in the program to also learn how to cook healthy as well. So we not only provide the nutrition education, they have a cooking segment in the class as well. And in addition to that, the plus side to that is that we also allow for them to take groceries home to provide the same recipes to their families, which is also is always an asset to it, because it's a great thing that we as panelists and just those persons who are advocate to share how we love to talk about nutrition, but it's another thing for us to just be able to share the wealth of knowledge of how to prepare recipes and be able to do that at home with your families as well. Of course, with at least 8 years of experience with nutrition, from breastfeeding to working with moms, working with pregnant women, to now, of course, working with adults, parents, as well as childcare professionals in that area of nutrition. So that is my 8 years of experience with nutrition. So I just love it. And I even now have advocated to do more nutrition education out in my community back home.
Thank you so much, Lamont, for that introduction. And last and not least, to Jermaine Jenkins, can you please introduce yourself briefly and then explain your expertise when it comes to relation of healthy eating?
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak on the panel tonight. I'm Jermaine Jenkins, and like it was mentioned before, I'm the co-founder of Fresh Future Farm, but my love of vegetables came 48 years ago when I was 4 years old and went to a community garden and got to harvest produce as a little kid. And I've been obsessed ever since, you know, and ultimately ending up, you know, I'm from South Carolina, but was raised up north. And when I moved back, soon after, I ended up coming to Johnson & Wales when it was here in Charleston. So I have degrees in baking and pastry and food service management, but ended up not following my degree and cooking for an after-school program when I graduated that my children participated in, which translated into a position as the first nutrition coordinator with the Low Country Food Bank. And from that, I went on to get a commercial urban agriculture certification from Grow and Power of Milwaukee and applied the skills that I learned there and through the internet at my house and then at Fresh Future Farm. So the way that we apply it, you know, towards healthy eating for our community is take, you know, what Dr. Evans would give as a prescription. And when our customers come to us and say, my doctor said do this, I said, well, these are all the things that we have that have fiber in them. Which ones do you like? And we use that to create a cookbook for folks. And then we also last year introduced like value-added meals. So we harvest the greens, we cook the greens in an anti-inflammatory way. So folks have healthy food that tastes like what they grew up with, but it's, you know, super good.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So my first question is to Dr. Waukesha Evans. What are the most common health concerns or conditions you encounter that can be improved through dietary changes?
That's an excellent question. And I wonder if I've actually seen you as a patient now, because this is one of the things I talk to all of my patients about. If you've ever been in practice with me, or if you've ever been a student, we always talk about lifestyle modifications first before I implement any type medication. There's so many conditions, including diabetes. Well, let me take away the actual diagnosis. Let's talk about symptoms. People complain about fatigue, restlessness, weight gain. Those are symptoms of conditions that could manifest in the chronic diagnosis or chronic diseases, but they can be managed so simply with making lifestyle modifications. So I will say those chronic conditions include diabetes, hypertension, hypercholesterolism, most of your chronic conditions that are affluent in the African American community, as well as low income areas.
Thank you. So with that, maybe now I'm going to shift to another question. This is for Jermaine. How does a sustainable farming practices impact the quality and the nutritional value of the produce we consume?
That's a great question. And it the answer like lies in how and why we grow produce a certain way at Fresh Future Farm. And I guess when I first like went through the Master Gardener course and realized at the time that I couldn't afford to do the measures that they suggested that cost money, I thought to myself and realized that our ancestors didn't have access to any of that. And they were also healthier than we are. So I went and just did research on the internet about how our ancestors, grew the food and that they used to feed themselves and their families. So the nutritional value is connected to the quality of the soil. And what we are intentional about at Fresh Future Farm is not using any chemicals to pesticides or fertilizers at all. We use natural methods to fertilize our crops. And as a result, also that and the fact that, what you recognize at a traditional grocery store as their store brand, we grow our store brand all within 200 feet of where we sell it. And because customers can come into Fresh Future Farm and buy it, and we'll harvest it to order. So you can't get anything more nutritionally rich than unless you grow it yourself, than what you get at Fresh Future Farm. That versus what you get commercially from a traditional grocery store is shipped across the country. And in the same way that like bread goes stale, produce loses its nutritional value as soon as it's harvested, unless you freeze it. So the combination of not using chemicals to kind of protect the integrity of not only the crop, but the environment is how we are intentional about ensuring like the sustainability of the work, just using those practices that our ancestors had used and then teaching other people to do the same thing.
Thank you for that. And then you mentioned something in your explanation that the way how the soil, can you give us more, you give us some nuggets, can you give us more meat on that, like how the soil impacted the quality of the produce?
Well, if you do some like study around agriculture and ancestry and what the practices that our ancestors used to grow crops, I tell the students that come to the farm for lessons that our ancestors didn't make trash, right? So everything that they consumed was used in some kind of way, and a lot of the items, whether it's bones from animals, all of those things were used to build rich soil. And, you hear in folks, especially like farmers that use more commercial methods of growing, that they have to do this for pest control and that for fertilization. The fact of the matter is that if the soil is healthy, the plant is healthy, and a healthy plant does not attract pests. Stressed plants do. I guess in the same way that stressed bodies, end up attracting molecular or illnesses. So we are intentional about using like the most simple practices to make the soil rich. You'll go to a farm out in the country maybe, and the soil is kind of gray because it's exposed and turned over. We, like maybe we started when we were growing at Fresh Future Farm with 1 inch of soil. Now we have like 5 inches of soil that we grow. And we continue to build upon that rich soil, again, with just natural materials, no chemicals, to get what my mentor called black gold. And in that kind of soil, you can get the healthiest production. I'd love, for folks from Royal Baptist to come and look. We just had some farmers from Clemson come to our farm today, and they couldn't believe, that we don't water our plants because they've never seen crops that large and healthy before. And we don't. And our ancestors use these same practices. So
Mr. Jermaine, I'm trying to contain my excitement, but I gotta let you know, I started a small garden and I'm here for it.
Yes.
I was shocked, like literally just learning more about gardening, how literally the soil quality can affect the crops. And I realized that the same elements that are in our bodies are the same elements that are found in soil. And if
Mhm.
those elements aren't present in the soil, they're not included in the food that we ingest, and we don't get them in our bodies. So when we
Yeah,
go to
just
do these CMPs and do these blood draws, all of that reflects in lab work based on diet.
yeah, and we've had, like, to your point, like, there was a gentleman who, was retired military, I believe. Like, his VA doctor told him to do this, that, and the third to get healthy, and he just started buying a bag of vegetables for us a week. And after a month or so, his doctor called him and said, "What are you doing?" And he was eating the produce that he got from Fresh Future Farm, that was super fresh and like super rich in the materials, because just like Dr. Evans said, potassium, nitrogen, phosphorus, all of those things are in the macronutrients. Then there's micronutrients that are also in the soil that are readily available in the plant.
Thank you so much. Now I'm gonna bounce back to Dr. Waukesha. I know you highlight that, if we don't eat it proper, our body feel tiredness, restless, So can you can you explain a little bit more? So what kind of dietary change, maybe the folks who are listening, they can take actions, to stay healthy and to do changes. We can all do changes in our life. You're muted.
I said, I would apologize, but I won't apologize. I'm a little nerdy. So I have a few slides I want to share if you allow me to share my screen. Here we go. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So anytime you go into a doctor's appointment, there's some primary goals they want to achieve. Of course, when they asked me to join this talk, they gave us the topic of ways we could refuel our body and how we can utilize ideas to potentially address health concerns with healthcare providers when we go into an office visit. So we want you to get some take-home points about how you can develop a personalized plan. So I introduced myself. I am Waukesha Evans. I'm a licensed clinician. And the one thing that I want my patients to do when they come in the office is really just feel comfortable talking to me, because communication is key. I can't treat what I don't know about. But I ask you to think about this as almost as if you're going into a business meeting when you go into your doctor's appointments. When you go into your business meetings at work, you have an agenda. You come up with an introduction, you talk about the purpose of the meeting, and then you talk about those areas where you may have some areas of weakness and those areas you want to grow in, and then you develop a timeline. And so for us, specifically during our office sessions, you may have an hour for a physical or a 20-minute follow-up or 15-minute sick visit, but it's important, it's imperative that that time is not wasted. So when you go into your doctor's appointments, we want you to have a goal in mind, and that goal needs to be specific, whether it's something that we're treating physically, but if you're seeing a great provider, they're treating you holistically, they're addressing your mind, body, and soul. And so they may talk to you about some things that are going on with your emotional health as well. But it's important that we're setting goals so we can get the goals. And you've probably seen this schematic 20 million times. We got to be smart. We got to be specific and plan specifically what our goal is for this office meeting. Do you want to come in and get a physical? Well, if you want a physical where we actually do all your lab work and do some preventative screenings, then we need to allow time to actually perform those screenings. So, and we want to come up with measurable outcomes. So we don't want to just say your blood sugar is high and send the patient home to deal with it alone. We want to be able to track their blood sugars and talk about what's attainable in a certain amount of time, so that they realize that we're not just screening, we're treating. And so I said all that to get to your point, and that in this business model, we automatically think that business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming, but our bodies, we only get one. And so it's important for us to take care of that one through daily actions. And so our meal planning is the way we allow our healthy self to heal thyself. So literally, we came into this world whole. We have these genetic predeterminants about what our health may look like, but we have these modifiable risk factors that we can make lifestyle adjustments to address. So just because mom or dad had high blood pressure or diabetes doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have it, but we're going to do the screenings to find out essentially if we're at risk for it. And so when we talk about screenings, there's some screenings that are common for males and females. Women, of course, 20s and 30s, it becomes mandatory that you start doing specific screening, specifically the pelvic exam, which is completely separate from your Pap exam, should be done starting in your 20s or 30s, unless you have conditions that require it to be done earlier. But that, again, that will be a specialized individual plan determined by you and your provider. When we start screening blood sugars, because we start seeing type 1 diabetics in their late teens, early 20s, differentiate between type 1 and type 2. So you might have some earlier onset of diabetes. So we start making lifestyle modifications there as well. And then we should be doing our screening cholesterol tests. 40s, of course, there comes mammogram. We start with ovarian screenings as well in our postmenopausal women. And previously, colonoscopies were done in the 50s, but 45 is the new 50. And so if you are experiencing any pelvic discomfort, any worsening constipation, blood in the stools, then of course you can have the colonoscopy earlier than that. If there's family history of any abnormal colon history, then you can do it even earlier. But all screening should start at 45 or before at this point. Bone densities, coronary artery screenings, as well as your skin tests, we should be doing with our hearing and eye exams. In males, oh, okay, my apologies. So I'm not in screen mode, huh? Nobody told me. So you're not seeing my other slides. Let me see if I can get to presentation mode. There we go. All right, so this was the screen I was talking about your women's screenings. They're similar to the male screening, except the male, of course, we got to start looking at their prostate. So males should be having that performed at least once a year, unless there's significant family history of prostate cancer in first generation relative, like a brother or a dad. You're going to do it annually, starting at 40 and more frequently as needed. I listed this specific lab as being an example of just a screening lab that we perform routinely, your cholesterol lab. And these are levels that we're told we should screen for and that are desirable or borderline or at higher risk. And so these are the standards. So when we get our cholesterol screen, we like to see your total cholesterol less than 200 and LDL less than 130 or so. But once we've evaluated your cholesterol, we start developing that personalized plan of saying, this person, because of their family history, because of their body mass index, because of their previous health history or other chronic conditions, should be at a different target. So I'll say, when you go in, communicate. In the past, we used to advocate for people to use the food pyramid, where we started talking about you needed to have so many carbs, so many fats, so many grains, or so much fiber in your diet daily. And it becomes overwhelming because there's no way you can eat all this food daily. And so patients just start to pick and choose what they want or eat what they think tastes good. But now there's a plate model that we utilize more so, where literally everybody has the same size standard plate in their households. If you divide the plate into fourths, your vegetable is going to take up anywhere from half the side of your plate if you're not consuming a fruit, or it can be the entire food side of the plate, your grain as well as a healthy protein with oil and water. And so in terms of preparing the foods and developing a a visual for what we want our meals to look like, this is the simplest way we can go in telling people how to eat. So I said all that to say that all of it's holistic, literally. When you come to the doctor's office, we're not just telling you take this medicine. We try to go over things that you should be including in your diet as well, because we want to see you healthy physically, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So in summary, I'll say, make sure you have a plan when you go to the doctor's office, know exactly what you want to talk about, what you want to address, and actively engage in that plan. Don't just be a recipient of the information and not try to change your lifestyle to meet those goals, but be proactive about your healthcare and make sure that you're doing those things and making daily decisions to be healthy. And that is all.
Thank you so much. That was like awesome information. I hope folks are taking notes, and excited to get more of this information when it comes to health. My next question I'm going to ask you, Mr. Lamar. How can we ensure a balanced and a variety diet while taking into account our individual dietary preference and the restrictions?
Okay, well, one of the things that I will say in regards to kind of going back from what Ms. Evans talked about in that last slide is an understanding that the Food and the Drug Administration prepared what we call the MyPlate. And when it comes to the MyPlate, that is where we look at as it pertains to how we as people should be looking towards understanding how we should be eating properly each day. One of the things I will say about the MyPlate, most people think that, of course, when they see it, oh, this is how my plate should look every time I eat a meal, which is not true. I often say in the situations, of course, just like as it pertains to that plate, how we put a little of each thing on the plate throughout the course of the day. So, of course, in that situation of understanding those fruits, having some sort of fruit in the course of your diet during the time of the day, during the course of the day. Same thing with the vegetables, the grains, as the dairy and the protein. A lot of time is these benefits from all doing this. This is where we see the situation of living longer. We one of the things I always tell participants when it comes to them, I give them this theory and this quote that I always use when I start a class. And this is something to just kind of dwell on and to think about. If your health is the last thing we want to lose, it should be a priority or the top priority when it comes to our life every day. And just understanding that is, of course, keep in mind that we're looking at those health disparities that we commonly see. Things that we potentially look at as, we're going to eat, as I tell my participants, hey, I'm not saying don't eat fried chicken. But the thing about it is, I'm saying we can't eat it every day. Same thing when it comes to, we're Southerners. So rice is going to be on in our meal for dinner. But we can't eat rice every day. There are other grains and other things that we have to make sure that we have to make sure that our body is healthy. Of course, these things also, when it comes to having a balanced diet, it helps when it comes to those preventing those health disparities. It helps with maintaining a healthy weight. It helps with, of course, with our digestive system. So these are the things as it pertains to the benefits of it. But like I said, the foundation of it is the MyPlate and making sure that when it comes to the balance, we refer to that to make sure that we get all those key components.
Thank you so much, Ramon, for that explanation. Yeah, I always think my plate is just whatever it's there, that's what you have to eat, maybe for each meal. I never thought that's probably for the entire day. So thank you for helping us understanding more on that. My next question is pretty much for everybody in the panelist. So what are the key nutrients or food groups that individuals often overlook in their diet, and how can they be incorporated more effectively? So is there any kind of food out there we always just like overlook it, like, not today, and maybe we're losing so much of the nutrients, for not taking advantage, especially here, maybe in the South Carolina, what kind of maybe like a food group, if we tapping in, we could get more nutritional benefit, maybe we don't know how to prepare it. So we say like, that's not for me,
I have, it has to be vegetables. And specifically vegetables in the same way, how hair has a texture when it comes out of your head.
Mhm.
Vegetables that you eat the way they grow out of the ground. Because, there's a tendency, like, because we think, we grow up eating things that are fried or are overly sauced, that, vegetables by themselves don't taste good. I think that's the thing, like, if we can overcome that and add more vegetables to our plates, I think many of us will be in a better, position nutritionally and health wise. So, and I'm happy to share, like, there's a million ways to prepare your fruits and vegetables, or you do not need to fry anything for it to taste fabulous.
Wow.
I will agree on that. When I first wanted the farmer to say it before I said it. But yes, it is vegetables. I think that, and not only when it comes to it, I've realized that a lot of times in situations, it's the exposure of what vegetables to eat. We commonly cook the same vegetables all the time. In times of just my history of working with individuals, being able to go in the store, or even going to the farm and getting those vegetables that normally we don't commonly see in the household. I'll say, many were very surprised about butternut squash, how to prepare it. And in my classes, I'm like, okay, what are all the benefits that it provides for them? I can list them all, but in the same sense, that's not the important part. But of course, just to know that, being able to utilize have a variety of vegetables in your diet is important. A lot of times, even when it comes to those veggies, and keep in mind that, not to say that in any way of form, that if you're having the vegetables, whether they're fresh, frozen, or canned, keep in mind that you're getting nutrition value from them. But in the sense of understanding, when you're going to make those purchases, we got to be mindful of the items and how we purchase them in the grocery store as well. Because even in that sense that you're looking at those frozen items, that they contain fat, they contain salt, they contain sugar. Then you go into those items that are canned. Same thing. Yes, I understand that those things could be it's very convenient. I can take them out the bag, I can take them out the can, things of that nature. But you got to be mindful of those certain things, such as if it's low in sodium, if it has no salt, is it high in syrup? Is high in fructose? Is it high in a light syrup? Is it in 100% juice? Those are things that, when it comes to those vegetables, and keep in mind, one of the things that we got to remember when it comes to fruits and vegetables, these items have their own natural sugar and salt in them as well. So when we talk about health disparities, keep in mind, we're going to cook with salt, we're going to cook with sugar as it pertains to whatever it is we're baking or making. So we got to be mindful of those things and doing these things, and be understanding of the moderation and knowledgeable of what it is that we're preparing. That's why most of the time in situations, the best way to go is to fresh.
Thank you so much for that explanation. Now there's a question from the audience to Jermaine. Can anyone in the public shop at the Fresh Future Farm?
Yes, anybody in the public can shop Our store is open Wednesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And you can look up, and find that information on our website, freshfuturefarm.org.
Thank you. And then the other question is for Dr. Evans. If you take cholesterol medication, can you get off? What does it take to get off?
Yeah, great question. And there's times when people don't want to start a medication because they feel like they're going to have to be on the medication the rest of their lives. So I will say that, again, we talked about those non-modifiable risk factors. If mom and dad had it, then it's potential that you may develop it. But it's those modifiable risk factors that we can control. Are we adding saturated and trans fats to our diets? Are we cooking in heavy oils? Are we cooking lots of foods that produce their own oils? Are we exercising? And so that would be a decision made solely on your individual, personal lifestyle and history that could be discussed solely with your provider who knows your health history. There are people who do come off cholesterol medications, and I'll say they are able to come off because they're willing to make the lifestyle modifications. Just as I just mentioned, there are people who don't eat vegetables, who don't eat fruit, but part of that is because they were never exposed to those vegetables or fruit at an early age. So exposure matters. Literally, my grandma was born in 1903. I feel blessed to have met her. She was a sharecropper. Literally, those still existed in South Carolina in the 1900s. But she and her husband worked the fields around their house to be able to live on the property. And they literally had fields even into the 1970s, 1980s, full of corn, cabbage, greens, like collard greens, mustard greens, and so many people automatically see greens and they think there's one green, but there's 20 million greens. But I can remember going and picking tomatoes off the plants and letting them sun ripen and eating them straight from the garden. And that was something I learned at an early age, that those foods taste good. Literally, they don't taste the same as in the grocery store. And that was one thing that catapulted me to start my own garden. Like last summer, we had the opportunity to literally walk in our backyard and pick cherry tomatoes off the vine for my salad stealing. And so even if it's a box garden or plants in a container, consider planting a home garden. Just because for me, it was therapeutic. One, and it reminded me that I don't have to prepare everything. Some things are already naturally ordained that were good for me. So I would say definitely talk to your provider, document what your cholesterol was prior to starting medication, see how it's trending. If it's gotten to a point where it's significantly decreased, you're actively exercising, so those vessels are constricting and relaxing. And so that circulating cholesterol is not being stored in your vessels, it's being excreted naturally, you're not storing it, then yes, it's possible to come off of cholesterol medicine. But again, if there's family history of heart attack, stroke, aneurysm, those things that and happen very quickly, taking a cholesterol medicine is not a punishment. It can be a preventative therapy. It can make sure that you're not increasing your risk for developing those conditions.
Thank you for that explanation. Now, there's another question somebody asked from the audience. This person, just for everybody, I do not trust many foods sold in the store. So we talk about it because there's so many foods are being sold out there, how can you ensure or give some guidance to some of us who feel that way?
Okay, so I want to, before I get to that, I want to go back to Ms. Evans and talk about that cholesterol with that person who has that issue. A lot of times in situation when it comes to that person, I'm just going to advise them in all aspect is to really focus on eating a lot of unsaturated fat. When I'm talking about that, you say, hey, well, what does that mean? Looking at a lot of plant-based items. Even when it comes to nuts, seeds, when it comes to even going to the point of like fish, like salmon, peanut butter, those things will be more so beneficial to you. A lot of times in situations you look at those when you're cooking, you want to cook with those things like sunflower oil, canola oil, olive oil, things that are mainly strongly towards the plant base. Stay away from those saturated fats. A lot of the things as it pertains to those animals, beef, the pork, things that we tend to in the South love. Stay away from those things. Those are the things that are going to cause that cholesterol to elevate. And then, of course, you have those conversations with your physician. Of course, going further into understanding, trusting those things in the grocery store. That is when the time frame, you got to think about those things as it pertains to reading that nutrition facts label. Keep in mind, manufacturers put a lot of information on the front of these items for you to really go out here and purchase, because they think that, of course, for one, when we go in the grocery store, we're going in there to purchase food items and get those items quickly and get on out of there. But of course, especially when it comes to certain things, you keep in mind, you'll look on a certain item. Let's say there's a drink item. It'll say 100% vitamin C. But then you look on the back of it, that same nutrition facts label, and it is full of added sugar. So here it is, it's helping you with vitamin C, but then you later find out that you become a pre-diabetic by drinking it every day, all day. So we got to be mindful of that, which is why the nutrition facts label, reading the back of it. And the thing about it is, what I teach my participants is to understand the rule, the 5-20 rule. That's the first thing to look at when it comes to it. When you're looking at that percentage daily value, look at that 5 or less is low. It's low in that item. If it's 20% or more, then it's high in that item, whether it's be sodium, cholesterol, carbohydrates, saturated fat, vitamin C, any of those items that you're looking for. But that's the first thing that we want to do, is that 5-20 rule. Remember that. And then the second thing is look at the ingredient list. I know that a lot of times in situations, they put a lot of different words on there that we can't pronounce. Fructose, glucose, all these different words. And oftentimes, the first thing you want to keep in mind is the first 2 items on the list of the ingredients is the main thing that makes up that product. So in that situation, hey, if you can't pronounce it, and it's the first 2, then you definitely don't want to eat it, or you definitely don't want to drink it, because that kind of lets you know right then and there, I don't know what it is I'm eating, or I don't know what I'm drinking. And oftentimes, like I said, if it says anything that ends with lose, fructose, glucose, lactose, all of that means sugar, corn syrup, honey. And that is when you realize that those things, as it pertains to when you look at that added sugar, those numbers are tremendous. And those are the things that we kind of commonly say, hey, well, I don't look at the back of those items. So I encourage everyone is to really start looking when you're shopping. Go out there, read those nutrition facts label, because that's where the truth is. Now, on the front, they're going to say everything you want to hear for you to buy the product. So you want to be mindful of that, because, I see it every day. We think that we are buying something so nutritious for ourselves, but a lot of things when it comes to it, we have what we consider as no nutritional value to it. Oftentimes I remember growing up with myself, I couldn't wait to get what we consider as a Pop-Tart. And I thought, oh, well, we got strawberry in it, but artificial altogether, no nutritional value. If you look at all I'm gaining is calories. So in the same sense, those are the things that when you understand and you get educated on those things, you want to be mindful to be cautious of what you're purchasing. Because they'll put on there these great tips to think that you are purchasing something where you're going to be able to run 2 and 3 and 4 miles, but at the same time, I give you 2 or 3 steps and you're out of breath. So you want to be mindful of those things.
Thank you so much. Just I remember somebody was telling me, if your grandma does not know what it is, don't eat it.
That ties into what I had to add to this conversation. A lot of, I'm going to take it back to vegetables, because if you buy it fresh, there's no nutrition label. You're doing good. Avocados are an example of a good fat for you, but if you stay in that produce aisle, for the most part, you're doing yourself a favor. And I used to talk about those that kind of like false, deceptive advertising with food. In the same way that there's clickbait on social media, I think those labels are clickbait in the grocery store to get you to buy things and think you're doing something for your family that is not actually the case. So yeah, just stay in the produce aisle as much as you possibly can. And come to our farm, because our produce tastes different and you'll fall in love with it all over again. Or any farmer, just as close to you as you can get it from the producer, the better it is for you.
Now, and this is another question for you, Jermaine. Are there classes to people who want to learn how to start garden?
We do offer classes, and if you can follow us on social media, and it's Fresh Future Farm everywhere on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We will share the dates that we have classes, and we teach people to garden, whether it's in containers in the ground, the same way that we grow food at our farm, without chemicals, and just kind of as naturally as possible.
Thank you. So, and this is another question from the audience. The word flavored is now being placed on the package versus the nutrition flavor, natural flavor. When I read the fine print, it shows as artificial flavor, lemon, vanilla, strawberry. Oh, so somebody just put a comment there. Was that a question necessary? Thank you. Go ahead.
And that is very true, and that's one of the things that that they're commonly manufacturers do as well. They'll tell you on the front that of course it has that natural, but when you read on the back, you'll see where it says artificial. So those are the things that we got to be mindful of, and also just to share as it pertains to, like Ms. Jenkins has shared in regards to those fruits and vegetables. I saw that there was a comment or a question about whether those things, when it comes to your brain and your memory. So oftentimes when it comes to your fruits and vegetables, you want to look at those fruits and vegetables that are red and purple and blue. Those are the things that really goes towards being sure. Eggplant, apples, oftentimes in situations, just like I share with everyone, now, you can't just eat one apple a day to stay from Miss Evans. You got to still go see her. But in the same situation, it will help in that case. So when you do go see her, you get a good report. So in the same sense, you definitely want to make sure that you're eating those red, purple, and blue fruits and vegetables to help when it comes to that brain and when it comes to your memory.
Thank you. So another question to our panelists. So how can we navigate the challenges of conflicting dietary advertisement, advice and the trends in the social media, and ensure evidence-based recommendations? Because there's so many things that they're throwing on us out there, So how can we ensure that we get actually the proper food when we go out there? What are you mentioned the My Plate, you mentioned how to read the label, so here I am, I'm going to the store, which section of the store I should be very far from, and which section of the store I should be gravitated more, when I go to the store. Probably start from there.
So definitely stay on the outer aisles of the grocery stores. That's where your fresh fruit, your vegetables, those foods that haven't been processed are going to be. And in terms of whether or not you should believe everything you read or see, review it with your clinician. We're not just going by trial and error and saying that this worked for 2 people. We're utilizing evidence-based medicine. So literally there are trials that are done to see how these chemicals or these foods work in people before they're put on the market. And that's the same with medications. And so there are times when people say, oh, this worked for my sister, or it worked for the 50-year-old lady that lives down the road, but your genetic predisposition is not the same. Your body mass index is not the same. The way you move throughout the day, your rest habits, your diet is not the exact same as the other person that may have worked in. And so I would say, don't just try products and say, I'm going to see if it works for me or not. Read the labels, do the research first before you ingest it. And in terms of finding foods that improve your brain fog, sometimes it's not necessarily the food, it's how you're fueling your body or lack of fuel in your body. Sometimes when we get in what we call get it done mode, where people are skipping meals, blood sugar decreases, sodium decreases. Sodium's important for muscle memory as well. Sodium and potassium are important for muscle. But you have to make sure you're fueling your body routinely. For some people, they can fast intermittently. Other people have to have small snacks frequently throughout the day. So you have to realize what works specifically for your body may be different from somebody else's body and work accordingly.
Thank you for that. So how can individual make informed choices when it comes to selecting and purchasing food, considering factors like seasonality, organic products, and the local produce?
I just typed into like the Q&A, like even organic farming uses chemicals. And the ancestral practices that we use, that's called natural farming because we don't use any products. And if you can't, like grow things to have it natural for yourself, local is good and organic are great options. But, yeah, the closer that you can buy your produce from the producer, I think the better it is for you. But, also just like changing up the ways in which you cook and using frying less, because you can get a good organic product and then fry it, and then you just lost a whole bunch of nutritional value. So those lightly processed foods that incorporating more of them, again, natural if you can get it, local and organic are good options.
And somebody is asking from the audience, what are the farm hours?
Okay, Wednesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we will, again, on social media, post when we have those gardening classes, but yeah, feel free to, I put our phone number in the Q&A, and I'll do the same with our website. But yeah, just feel free to reach out. And I'll also put our email address if there are other questions. Thank you.
Jermaine, do you guys sell seedlings or plants that other people can garden from?
We don't have like the facility to grow them because it gets super hot. So like we just passed the window where we could grow seedlings that we could sell. So I can like point you in the direction of where you can get some seedlings. But I mean, what you can get from these big box stores, you can grow them in your own soil, and they're easily accessible to everybody. But as soon as we have the facility to do that on our own, I'll share that information. Oh, but I also need to say too, like with regard to like medications and things, like I was diagnosed during COVID with rheumatoid arthritis, and the prescription was taking medicines every day. And I went to my family doctors, like, I'm not doing that. So I just like went like a step further with what I eat for myself, including like, I specifically use avocado oil, turmeric, and all of these different like warming herbs in my food, like lightly processed. And it's been 2 years and I've been able to manage my symptoms without taking medication. So food is medicine as long as, again, it's not overly processed. And it looks like what it did when you got it from the farmer. I'm talking to vegans. Y'all, I'm gonna give y'all my address if y'all need to find me. But
and somebody's asking another question. Can a good diet be enough without exercising?
So I say no. I advocate for everybody to exercise. I want you to do something. So literally, there are people who are healthy, who literally don't have any significant chronic diseases, and that's a good thing. But usually it's because they developed a healthy lifestyle. They are exercising. And so in terms of exercise is great because one, it gets the heart rate up. That's good cardiovascular care. So literally your vessels are constricting and relaxing. You have pliability of the vessels. So they're not hardening. The vessels naturally harden over time as we age, but you're offsetting the time in which they're going to start to begin to harden by keeping them mobile. You're improving the integrity of the vessel lining when you're causing the vessels to constrict and relax. When we lead sedentary lifestyles and we're consistently eating, we're not burning calories as efficiently. We're storing fats and carbs as fat instead of using it for energy. And so you see increase in weight. You may be able to delay it, you may be able to prolong it, but exercise plus proper diet, they're additive and they really do produce better outcomes.
Thank you for sharing that. And then since you are still stay on, so somebody in the audience, can you share this? Say like, I'm disappointed that even Girl Scouts cookies now contain artificial ingredients, and our babies are selling those, those items. So the question is it important that we take a vitamins supplement? And then you can chime in on the Girl Scouts cookies. Is it important to take a vitamin supplement? And then you can chime in on that, share your.
So vitamins are beneficial when there's deficiency in a vitamin. So there are times when people take one-a-days, or they'll take a B complex vitamin or vitamin D supplement, and they're not deficient. And so the body's not going to absorb those excess nutrients in the vitamin. They're going to only be excreted through our urine and our bowel. So I would say first find out if you're even deficient in anything. If your diet is balanced and you're actually getting the amount of nutrients you need in your food, you may not need it. But again, with the type of lifestyles people are living stressful lifestyles, not sleeping well, eating on the go, usually there are some deficiencies, but it's important to identify which deficiencies those are versus using a vitamin that's unnecessary.
And then,
go ahead. And I wanted to add, and I know that Ms. Jenkins will probably agree with me, is if you eat your veggies and eat your fruits and vegetables, you get all those vitamins you need. And that's why it's so important to, in that same situation, understand that, of course, those supplements that you may not potentially need, if you're eating those fruits and veggies and making sure you get the variety of those, then you're ensuring that you're getting what you need. And I also want to go back to the exercise question. And I do agree with Dr. Evans with that as well, because for one, it not only helps when it comes to those different things, but also when it comes to this thing called life that we deal with every day. A lot of times with coping with stress and things of that nature and understanding life, just being able to take that walk, go out and do a run, we feel so much better. It even helps with sometimes when you realize, hey, I'm waking up in the middle of the night, things of that nature with these irregular sleep patterns. All the times with that course of exercising and things of that nature, you're able to sleep better. You wake up in the morning, you feel better. It just does so much for you when it comes to exercise. And so we, encourage that to be one of the top priorities, along with that balanced diet.
Thank you.
Can I just add something to the exercise?
Mm-hmm.
Gardening is low impact exercise. You don't have to start running a marathon. You can get out in your yard, and you can even on YouTube and other places find low impact exercises. And matter of fact, like I'm 52, I have not the best knees, but I found like chair exercises that get my heart rate up. So there are so many options if mobility is an issue for you to still be active. So yeah.
And I love the idea of gardening and running and and walking and getting outdoors, because we need sunlight to actually process the vitamin D in our foods as well. So it's almost counterintuitive. People think if I exercise, I'm going to be tired. But a lot of times people suffer from chronic fatigue because they're not exercising. And so you don't have to go out and run a marathon, but you do have to do something that one is enjoyable. That makes it easier to consistently perform. And then do something that one isn't going to injure yourself. We want you to do it safely. And so as long as you're doing, and I'm not telling you, again, you have to run a marathon, but an occasional walk, 20 to 30 minutes, twice a week. Or if you can't commit to twice a week, do it once a week. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, sit, do the chair exercises. But most definitely just do something. Weights are a great low intensity, high carb burning way to tone the body in a short amount of time. So you don't have to lift heavy, but you do have to lift. I see so many females who are in their 40s and 50s that are saying, I was so thin, I could run 2 miles every day, and now I'm tired all the time and I'm gaining weight. And you have to realize there are hormonal imbalances that are in place too. Some can be corrected with diet. Others need medical intervention, but some can truly be adjusted by lifestyle. And so literally have that conversation. Tell your clinicians that you're not feeling as energized. You don't have the desire to participate in certain activities. And find out really if it comes down to what you're eating, how you're fueling your body, because it can make a difference if you change your diet.
Thank you. And someone in the audience asked another question. Someone mentioned fiber earlier. Why should I be concerned about the adequate fiber, and how can inadequate fiber hurt me? So.
I was going to refer to Lamar, but I'll mention that fiber is really important in our digestion. You'll hear people talking about chronic constipation, not being able to have regular bowel movements, and it's usually because there's a decrease on dietary fiber. We need fiber for muscle development, for GI absorption, and for regular BMs. But even if you're taking a medication for constipation or for GI motility, it's not going to work unless you have this water. So again, it goes back to diet.
And also, when it comes to that, when you look at fiber, you're going to look for those grains that are whole grains. Of course, you have your difference. You have the two different grains that you have. You have your whole grains and you have your refined grains. Normally, when it comes to looking at your food, the different food items or the different items that you have, that you see that you potentially go in this grocery store and you purchase, you're looking for the first ingredient. Here we go again, back to that nutrition facts label, looking at the ingredient list, and you're seeing that first item there that says it was a whole grain, a whole wheat, whole oats. Those things are what you want to strongly get to finding. Sometimes you'll see where manufacturers have now been able to put on the item. There's like a little stamp that tells you that it actually is a whole grain item. So those are the things that you really, when you're gaining a lot of your fiber, because normally when it comes to any refined grains, you're looking at just getting more so you're getting iron from it and some type of vitamin. So you want to be mindful of those. And I did see another comment or question in regards to peanuts. Now, of course, peanuts, you do have nutritional value there with those, but we got to be mindful of what's on the peanuts, because if you get those, you look at those salted peanuts. Now, we can't just eat those salted peanuts, because here it is. We getting those peanuts, which is a plant-based. It helps with that saturated fat, with that unsaturated fat, and helps with that cholesterol. But we don't want to make sure that we want to make sure that we're not eating those salted peanuts and thinking, oh, well, here it is, it's helping my cholesterol, but here it is in the same situation, my blood pressure is going up because I'm eating all this salt. So you got to be mindful of that when it comes to that sodium intake with those as well.
So,
well, and I just will say real quick, especially like if you hear this information and you think about what you eat and you are like stressed out because you have to make drastic changes. Everything's okay in moderation. And, you know, my husband, like lived with diabetes, and we were still able to have mashed potatoes. I was still able to, have pizza, but I added cauliflower to the mashed potatoes, left the skin on, and then I added like oats and flaxseed to the dough that I made myself for the pizza. So someone said in a book, I think Food Rules or something, like, if you want something like that's snack, make it yourself. That's the safest, healthiest bet. But watch that butter and that salt, y'all.
So, and somebody asks you, why do vitamin B make some people like me sleepy? It makes somebody sleepy. Any?
So again, you need to talk to your clinician. And so you mentioned vitamin B, but there are multiple vitamin Bs. There's B1, B6, B12. Which are you taking? Are you taking a complex? And were you screened and told that you were deficient in vitamin B? It may not necessarily be the vitamin B. It could be drug-to-drug interaction. Some of these vitamins are not FDA approved, so it's important to read your label. Medications that are prescribed by clinicians are FDA approved, meaning they've gone through screenings. But in some of these over-the-counter prescriptions or over-the-counter medications, one pill may have a different percentage of active ingredient than another pill in the same bottle. So again, brands matter as well. And so just because one B vitamin makes you feel ill doesn't necessarily mean that prescription strength B complex vitamin will make you feel a certain way. And then I'll say this as well, diet should not feel restrictive. You should not feel punished when you're told that you can't eat this or you can't eat that. You need to learn portion control. And there are lots of websites out. The American Diabetes Association uses what they call a hand model, where they show you a fist versus a thumb versus a palm size of servings you should have of foods. Because I'm going to be honest, I eat bacon. I love bacon. Bacon and cheese make everything better. I'm gonna eat it, but I'm gonna run. I'm gonna do Zumba. I'm gonna do Zumba toning. I'm gonna use weights, and I'm gonna have it in moderation. So don't feel like you can't have all the foods that you want. You just have to learn the portions that you can consume them in. I'm a Southern girl. I eat boiled peanuts, but I don't necessarily need all the salt. So again, moderation, moderation, moderation.
So, and this is for Dr. Evans, another question. Somebody say, I take vitamin D, 5,000 milligram. My last blood test said I was over the normal number. Should I stop taking or take a lower dose?
Great question. And again, this is why we perform the labs. So initially, when you're placing the vitamin D supplement, you could have been severely deficient. This is one of the most common vitamins that people are deficient in. They have no idea, because a lot of times people aren't symptomatic when they have vitamin D deficiency. But vitamin D has been shown to be one of those elements that have antioxidant potential, are great for the immune system, good. Everybody thinks bone health, but it's been associated with so many other chronic conditions. So when she was initially placed on, he or she were initially placed on the vitamin supplement, they may have been very deficient. Taking it consistently, numbers start to go up. Vitamin D levels, we like to see them if you're using LabCorp Quest at a level of 30 or above. If your numbers have come up to the point where they're higher than the recommended concentration in your bloodstream, no, you should not stop taking the vitamin. You should probably have your medication decrease so you're at a concentration that's beneficial to you. Some people are better active metabolizers or specific medications or specific foods as well. So you don't want to stop it completely because you feel like you're healed when it's been managed and it continues to have a need to be managed. So you're probably just going to have to adjust it, get the prescription adjusted.
Thank you.
And I'll add this one thing. And then also, you're on that prescription, but are you taking any other multivitamins as well? There are times when they're over-the-counter multivitamins like Centrum or the Women's One a Day, that'll have your B6, your B12, your vitamin D, a certain amount of vitamin C in it, and you're getting some benefit from that prescription and taking another prescription as well that has the same active ingredient in it. So read the labels, let your provider know if you're taking any medications over the counter in addition to anything that's been prescribed, so we can make sure there's no drug-drug interactions.
Thank you for that information. So another question, how can we foster a healthier relation with food and addressing issues like emotional eating, food guilt, or restrictive behavior? So you just tap in on that a little bit. Can you expand that on those other two dynamics?
I would love to address that. I believe in healthcare as being a threefold module. It has to be holistic. We have to address mind, body, and soul, because so many things that manifest physically are a result of what we're experiencing emotionally and with our spiritual life. So in the event that you find yourself eating emotionally, and that doesn't necessarily always mean overeating, it can sometimes mean undereating and not fueling yourself. And that can in itself cause other physical conditions that make the depression or anxiety or the emotional discomfort that you're feeling even worse. So I would say, one, first identify how you're feeling. Be honest. A lot of times, especially, and I'll just be honest, especially in the African American community, women will say, "I'm fine, I'm good. How you doing? I'm good." And they're tired, they're stressed, they're not sleeping well, they're not eating well, or they're eating too much or too little. So first, be honest, identify how you're feeling, and that can change from minute to minute, day to day, hour to hour, week to week. But be honest in how you're feeling in that specific situation. And then don't be afraid to talk to your provider. We're not just here to treat the high blood pressure, we're here to treat your physical ailments. We're here to treat those emotional things as well. Most primary care offices have access to licensed professional counselors, social workers, other providers other than just psychiatrists, because everybody doesn't feel comfortable talking to psychiatrists, just to develop a lifestyle plan for you. And that may be more beneficial than actually taking a medication, to actually just talk to somebody to help you identify how you're feeling and come up with a plan versus reacting to everything that you're experiencing from minute to minute. And so one way to physically document what you're eating and identify what your triggers are is to keep a food diary. There are great ones available on smartphones like MyFitnessPal or Noom, where you can literally track what you're eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner. You can put in, and even like generic foods, like from great value brands from Walmart, they have them listed in these food diaries where you can put in how much you've eaten and what you've eaten that day. So you can see how many calories you're consuming. You can see how many carbs, how much fiber, how much protein you're ingesting in your diet. And you can start to become aware of what you're doing to fuel your body and what may be lacking or what you may be overindulging in. So I would say first acknowledge the problem, try to develop a plan to address the problem. And sometimes that may not just be a medication, that may be mental health counseling as well. So ask your provider, be honest, tell them how you're feeling, because all of this manifests in some way or another.
Thank you for that explanation. And then can you provide some practical tips or strategies for meal planning and preparation to encourage healthier eating habits? Is there any tricks out there?
I think meal prep is one that we see that's used often. Like if because you might be tired after coming home from work or school. So like if you pick a day of the week where you get all of your ingredients, like at least chop them so they're easier for you to come home and make a meal, or prepare them ahead of time so that those vegetables are already ready. These are simple things that you can do that, give you control over what it is you eat. And even better, having those things that you prep on a Sunday, for example, then that you can then take to lunch instead of, eating out. It saves, it's good for your health and good for your wallet. So.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, of course, some things as it pertains to that as well. First thing I'm gonna say it 3 times: discipline, discipline, discipline. Of course, a lot of times in situations just like Ms. Jenkins said, we got a meal prep. Because keep in mind, we think about when we get takeout food. Listen, I tell my participants all the time, the same amount of time you sit waiting in that fast food line, by now you probably could cook 2 or 3 meals waiting in that line. And then think about it. When you get home, the order is wrong anyway. So in the same sense, now you're upset. Your meal is wrong. Now you feel like you got something that you didn't pay for. And in this situation, hey, preparing my meal at home is the best tool that you can have, because you know what's in it and you know how it's been prepared. That is one of the great things that you got to keep in mind when it comes to that. And oftentimes in situations, sometimes depending on the portion distortion is the main thing that we always want to look into. Don't always, even in a situation when we eating certain things, okay, we get these big bag of chips, we get these big items. So in the same sense, when it comes to that portion control, get what you want out of that bag and then put it out. Because oftentimes in situations, what happens? We go on that couch, we watch a good show, and all of a sudden we steady just eating. Because all we see, this is getting really good. So, I got to keep eating. And our mindset is on one thing, not realizing that we're doing more, eating more as it pertains to that, that portion control or that portion size is expanded. Because, of course, in the same sense of us with the serving size, here again, we're looking at that nutrition facts label on the back of that food item. And of course, that's out the window, because now we're watching our great show and we're not thinking about how much we're eating. We're just watching the show because it's getting good. So those are things that you really want to be mindful of, in the same sense of, like I said, not necessarily to say that, of course, when it comes to having that takeout, which most of us, we're in, and I'm going to be honest with it, you will see me in the line too, but in the ideal of it is you got to be mindful is, doing things and discipline yourself to say, hey, let me go, if I'm doing it 4 or 5 times a week, let me go down to 2. And so that therefore I'm, making that change. And I always tell my participants this as well. Small change make the greatest impact. So you don't have to change everything overnight, because one of the things I always say when it comes to it, we go from, I'm going to start tomorrow, I'm going to do all this, 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 and this, and this. And then we have that time frame when we relapse and we're like, you know what, I can't do it. I love this item too much to give it all up. So don't go cold turkey on me. Start small. Hey, if you eating that takeout, 4 times a week, go to the point where you're at that era of saying, hey, let me do it only 2 to 3 times, and gradually get to that point where you say, you know what, I don't need that, because if I can do 2, only go 2 times, I can go without it. And that's where you get that change, and that's where you see that that change that you want in your life. So definitely when it comes to that, make those small changes first. Set those small, short goals for long-term results.
And I'll add, meal prep doesn't necessarily mean cooking. Meal prep can be as simple as adding some grapes in a Ziploc bag to go. I would say, in terms of a visual, get a fruit basket. Put your fruit basket in the middle of your counter, where you have your bananas hanging, your oranges in the base, some nuts that you can grab on the go, and literally start there. When you have that visual and you see that fruit is spoiling because you have not eaten it, you're going to feel that. You're going to say, I spent money and I did not eat that fruit. So the next time you go to the store, you're going to be more anxious about saying, let me add this, grab this orange on the way to work. Let me eat this handful of grapes in between patients. I'm a snack jack, and literally I make sure that my snacks are healthy, but I have the combination where I have the occasional Lay's chip too. But again, it's about finding that balance.
Thank you so much for the great conversation. It's 7:57 right now. I truly appreciate. I think our audience got a well informed with a lot of things. So quick question. I think it would be like beneficial for the audience if they get some contact information. I don't know, the panelists, if you can drop, it could be phone number, email, maybe how they can reach out and get all those good idea and information. And with that, I will take the conversation back to Reverend Frank Harris.
Thank you to our moderator, and certainly thank you to each of our panelists. As I was listening, I was thinking that, and I think Brother Hodges said it so well toward the end about change. Change is possible, and change is change for our good. And thank you to our panelists, each of you, for putting it where we can reach it and letting us know that there are things within our scope that will help us along the way and help us down the road. So I've just enjoyed listening and certainly, like I said earlier, writing down notes. And the conversation was so rich, and I know there were some questions we were not able to get to. When that has happened in the past, we have sent those questions to our panelists and just invited them to respond. And then we can put that again on our Rural Foundation website, and as well as the contact information, any kind of contact information you would also like to provide. We can make that accessible to our audience. So to Dr. Evans and Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Hodges, Mr. Wango, we thank you so much. We are blessed to be in this conversation with you and to hear from your perspective and from your expertise. So thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing in our community and bringing that work to us tonight. I just want to again remind the audience that we have our Wellness on Wednesday platform usually each fourth Wednesday of the month. And so you can look forward to future announcements about upcoming topics. And we always invite our community to join us. And if there are topics of interest, we invite our community to share those with us. If there are things that are concerning, and maybe there are some things we can research and find the right resources to address those needs. So we're always looking for feedback about future topics that we can cover. But this topic tonight has been so rich, and we will take it with us, the information that we've received tonight. So with our thanks and our gratitude, we invite each of us to close out in prayer for tonight's discussion. Again, our God, we thank you so much. Thank you for putting the right resources around us and reminding us that as the soil is good, as we heard one of our presenters say tonight, as the soil is good, the food will be good, the fruit will be good. So we thank you for a rich soil of information, edification, a rich soil of community representatives and those who work so hard and so diligently, and wherever you have sent them and led them to be. But thank you for the gathering tonight. Thank you, Lord. There is safety in a multitude of counselors. And so we thank you for the counsel we've received tonight. Continue to bless those who gather, continue to bless this ministry, and continue to bless your people and your community as we continue to give you thanks.